Jason, welcome to the first episode of TechTonic by EisnerAmper. Thanks for being here and thanks for being our very first guest. So today we're going to talk about everything related to AI. It's been a very hot topic, and ChatGPT has been kind of leading, with in 5 days, I think 100 million users or something. So it's a lot of people have been asking us about it. I think you're one of the best people to talk about it. Why don't you kind of give us an introduction on yourself and your experience and how you kind of use it today with your existing clients or prospects?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And thank you for having me. So I'm Jason Giuliano. I'm the national practice leader for EisnerAmper Digital Transformation. I'm also the chairperson for the CompTIA AI Leaders Council. But I've been working with AI now for over 10 years. In terms of ChatGPT, it's the most traction I've seen in the last 10 years in AI.
Yeah.
I think, the flexibility and, market play that they basically provided everyone ChatGPT to use and try out. I think that's how, they got so much traffic to begin with.
I don't even think they were expecting that kind of traction so quickly, right?
Yeah, and the website's been down a few times, especially in the early months of like November and December when they first pushed out with the GPT-3 playground. But now, it's leveraging, generative AI. So it's taking, mix, and people are looking at use cases and how to integrate it with like conversational AI and digital assistants, and then they're leveraging it to do deep fakes. So a lot of great use cases.
Yeah, I think we're seeing kind of, there's just wild stuff out there in terms of what people have been able to come up with, which is really exciting and also sometimes terrifying.
Yeah.
So let's start with, I'm sure the audience has an idea at this point, just following the news, but from a high level, how does it work exactly? Because as you said, AI has existed for a long time. So why now are we reaching, I guess, the turning point or the climax in this story or this journey for AI?
So I think people now have the technology in their hands. Everyone does. So it gives them the opportunity to be, much more creative. Think of, different use cases on how to use it. They've been testing it. And as you know, with like innovation, you basically test, and wherever it doesn't work, you test something else out and see if that works. So I think that gave them the opportunity to like look at different use cases, right? Like students have been using it now. I'm an adjunct professor. We're talking about, how to, enable students to still use ChatGPT, but in the same token, make sure that we have plagiarism tools that, look at AI generated content. So like if we see that, the content is like, 30% or more AI generated, give the kid, 0, but in the same token, allow them to leverage the tool to use it as a, learning tool to help them be more creative and think about, different solutions.
It reminds me of the calculator when it first came out. They were hesitant to allow students to use it, but then realized that, it's not about being able to do complex computation in your head. It's about using your judgment to solve a problem. And part of that is knowing how to use a calculator in the right way. So that's how I see AI. And there's a lot of different kinds of AI, right? So ChatGPT is what they call a large language model.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to get in there and understand it from a technical perspective. There's a lot. If you really get into it, it's very complex how it works. And obviously we're trying to, the objective is to mimic the general intelligence, right? So the human brain and all of that. But can you tell us a little about the different kinds of models? So is the same AI that talks to you, is it the same AI that generates the imagery like DALL-E, or are they completely different, trained differently, and all of that?
No, it's the same model. So it's ChatGPT is using the GPT-3 model, which uses like transformational AI, generative AI, but it's related to text, is related to images, basically taking data that it's learned from and responding to the intent that it's receiving, right? So from an image creation perspective, you say, I want to create a teddy bear floating in space 100,000 feet up high from planet Earth. So it'll grab like what it understands about teddy bears and space and Earth and cute teddy bears, and then
when it generates the imagery, how does it construct it? Because one is like turning into words and getting the understanding in a sense,
right?
And then the step after that is turning into data that can be reviewed, right?
So that's where the training. So with AI, when you first create the model, you basically, training a toddler, right? And toddler's a sponge. It's grabbing information that is received, right? The look, the feel, and then the responses. And, if we say, this is a bad response, for instance, it'll learn from that, saying, okay, well, next time I'll, give you other output. So that's how it eventually learns. I mean, I've been using it since it came out, and some of those images are like out of whack, right? But some of them are really powerful,
right? Surprising,
yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, I think one of the tipping points was, I don't know if you've heard of the Lensa app, where people were basically uploading profile shots of their basically selfies, and then it would generate an anime version of them, like an anime caricature. I'm sure you've seen people use that all the time. And I think that's really it was a really good example of what AI can do. And it also kind of made it really simple for them to understand how it works, and the power of AI. So that was really cool to see. And then I think ChatGPT, I mean, it's been around forever, but I think after that was when it really started to take off, because people got more interested in AI. But it also raised some interesting things about legal, because Lensa will take existing art from people without crediting them, for example.
Right.
And then it'll generate something brand new, right? So if you as an artist were to draw a painting and you were to look at the Mona Lisa and then draw yourself or paint it or whatever, you're protected.
Right.
Now, is AI also protected? And does that also extend into videos? And it's just such a new thing. Have you heard anything about what the industry is trying to do about all this?
So, and we chatted about this a little while ago. I mean, we could go really deep and rabbit hole with this, right? But I think everyone's trying to get a handle, with it, right? The attorneys, right? The judges, the creators, the content creators.
Mm-hmm.
What's art? What's not art, right? I don't know what the future has in store for us, but because if you look at artists, right? Artists gets their inspiration from what's around them too.
Right, because nothing is truly original.
Exactly. So that's what, quite frankly, AI is doing.
Right.
So
it's doing it faster than you could do it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And as a human being, I could consider myself as an artist if I leverage AI as a tool to help me, because I still have to feed it information, right?
Right. And that takes creativity, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. That's
true. So I guess we'll have to see. I mean, there's going to be probably a lot of court cases like precedents set that will challenge, how people.
And some of them are just be right, and some of them, quite frankly, will be wrong.
Right. And I don't know if you can really stop people from doing it.
Yeah.
I guess this would only apply to commercial entities or something like that.
Yeah. And then, ethics is going to be a big portion of that, right? What's right, what's wrong. Yeah. There's going to be a very gray area.
Right.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, Bing, they've, I would say, the first ones that have on a large scale implemented AI, ChatGPT. I heard they're using not 3.5, but one that's a little bit more fine tuned. And obviously they have to put in some guardrails. So when it comes to ethics, it's interesting because some people are upset because they want AI to be completely neutral. Whereas a commercial entity wants it to be, for example, a positive experience at the expense of potentially being objective, right?
Right.
So how do you see that kind of playing out? I mean, a lot of people are complaining. that it's biased or leaning politically in one way or the other. Obviously, Microsoft is not intending to promote bias, but inherently there's always going to be some bias if you're going to add guardrails to it, right? So, what do you think about how that's all playing out?
Well, I think even that, adding the guardrails to it, you may get some bias in there based on the content that it's learning from.
That's true.
And you're not doing it intentionally.
Because AI is not passing judgment.
Exactly.
So if like 80% of the facts are incorrect, it's going to say, well, these are the facts.
Yeah, it's going to give you misinformation.
So in a way, AI is basically like the best and worst of humanity distilled in a soulless kind of tool that you can tap into the collective conscience in a way to get an understanding of what people believe, but it won't necessarily tell you what's right or wrong, right?
Right. Now, the challenge with Microsoft is that they're going to be leveraging it to commercialize it. So, they have a responsibility to make sure that there's a governance model in place to make corrections as they see, the output of, the open AI integrated to the Microsoft ecosystem is correct, right?
Yeah.
And right now you mentioned that they're basically layering their secret sauce on top of GPT 3.5, but we all know GPT-4 is coming out this year, and Google, is introducing Google Sparrow and Bard, and when that happens, they're saying that could be ChatGPT on steroids.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with that, right?
I imagine just predicting the future or you'll have an AI that will evaluate AIs for their bias and expose all of them in a way.
It's been happening already. Yeah. We got AI models that teach other AI models.
Right.
It's a big use case in financial services where, they've created like an AI governance model that basically helps train other AI models. And look, we're testing it, right? We created, our digital assistants with Maya and Faith, and we're teaching it, information from accounting advisory firms to understand what we do, understand about our clients, create like a digital concierge assistant internally to help our employees, right? I mean, another 5 years from now, I believe every worker, when they log in the morning, they're going to have their little digital assistant helping them, basically work on their tasks throughout the day.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So can you tell me more about some of these practical applications, especially in terms of like the platforms out there? I mean, I know Amazon has like SageMaker, and they have things built on top of their analytics tools that have AI incorporated, but it doesn't seem like a whole lot of people have been using them just yet. Or maybe they are and people just don't notice because it's that streamlined. But
it's the latter. Yeah.
What was that?
It's the latter. People are not noticing because
and I guess
integrated into their process.
I guess that's when AI is. That's how you know it's good, right? It's when you don't notice it. Because if you noticed it, then it stopped passing the Turing test?
Yeah. The USAA Bank, they've been using IBM Watson virtual assistant for years now, right? So we actually talk to like the digital agent, you're talking to IBM Watson.
Really?
And it's having that conversation with you, right?
Okay, and
it's connected to their banking platform, and it's totally integrated into their workflow.
Well, I think that's probably one of the best use cases. If someone wants a personalized assistant to help them through a new piece of software, it makes sense that an AI that's been trained on the software can just answer literally any question they have. So I can see that. What are some of the more exciting use cases that you've seen? Either with your own clients or just in general?
I mean, from a personal perspective, it's definitely that content creation around video and images. It's just crazy what these AI models come up with, right?
Yeah, I've seen someone on YouTube, or maybe on LinkedIn. He basically recorded a video, and he had the AI swap out the name that, instead of saying, "Hi, Jason," it would say, "Hi, John. Hi, Bob. Hi, Mary," whatever.
Yeah.
And that way he can make it seem like he's personalizing every single video that goes out, but it's not personalized. And it's really interesting to kind of try to navigate that from a ethical perspective. Not that it's unethical, but I think in the future it seems like people will probably have to change the way they see a video like that. If it seems completely, like if they're completely fooled, they still have to be skeptical. And that makes me wonder, is that good or bad for society that we now have to be basically question everything, even if it seems completely legitimate? And maybe we have to go back to being face-to-face all the time.
I mean, the first time I saw a deep fake was that Obama deep fake they did a couple years ago, right? And yeah.
It was pretty good.
It was definitely pretty impressive.
Have you seen lately they've been doing deep fakes where all the previous presidents are playing like Minecraft or Counter-Strike together? And it's like Biden's yelling at Obama and Trump is like, "You guys are idiots." They're just like banter. And it's really entertaining because it sounds like Biden, Trump, and
yeah, I mean, and you're using different pieces of AI, right? So you use the speech-to-text natural language processing to record your voice, right?
Right.
And then you layer in this generative AI model to like understand what you're saying and incorporate that speech-to-text into like that imagery, right?
Right.
And it also incorporates like the facial movements and like, you know, and the hand movements that we're doing right now, right?
Right.
And that's when it becomes so realistic because this is what, you know, normal humans do from a day-to-day perspective.
So what do you think? I mean, the sky's the limit, obviously, but how far can we get with this technology? I mean, one of the predictions I kind of came up with is that within 10 years, and this is crazy, within 10 years, I think it'll be possible for every person to have their own personalized assistant that has all the context within their life kind of embedded in the knowledge that your personal AI is trained on. And it'll be able to interject and, maybe using AR, it'll like show you things almost like your buddies right next to you. And it can be as simple as like having an extra microphone and camera. It sees and hears what you see and hear. And then it's on the fly. It's basically processing the world around you. And maybe even doing like facial recognition. So if I could be talking to somebody and it can say, "Hey, this guy seems anxious." It can tell you afterwards, like, "This guy seemed anxious at like the 30-second mark of your conversation," which is crazy to think about, but it's entirely possible.
The technology exists today.
And it does, right?
I mean, Google goggles, right?
Yeah.
They didn't make it not because of the technology. They didn't make it because privacy issues. They didn't know when someone was like recording them through their, goggles or like. I was on a call. I have the Bose. Was it the Bluetooth Bose with the mic and the headset that's built in?
Right.
And I was having a phone conversation. I was next to folks and they were like looking to me, right? So I think in Ray-Ban did this recently with Facebook and Oculus.
Right.
Where
and it looks pretty good. It's
pretty good to sell. Yeah, and I mean, what they did to try to limit the privacy issues, they created a small little light. So when you're recording,
it shows.
Light shows, right?
Right.
So they're hoping, that'll change everyone's perception. But the technology is here today. I could create a digital twin of myself. Basically, teach it. Basically, talk to it. I could journalize through this model. And tell them like my persona. I could give them my this persona, right? And then they can understand who I am as a human being, and quite frankly, create like an avatar. And if I,
tell
leave this earth,
where you are on the Myers-Briggs personality.
Yeah, exactly. My kids could talk to this thing forever.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. They raise children because, not raise children, but bring up the topic. Like, imagine someone passing away prematurely, but they have a version of their dad or the version of their mom that can kind of guide them through life. Like, let's say they're 10 years old and, well, I think there was was it Black Mirror? That show?
Yeah.
I think there was an episode on that.
I think so, yeah.
Where like a wife passed away or something and the guy was talking to her on a phone, but it was, it's crazy to think what's possible, but
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the technology is already here. And some of the technology isn't great.
Right.
It's like a dollar, right? It's learning.
And some of it is just CPU bottlenecks that will.
And some people just don't know it exists today. Right?
That's true.
So,
That's true.
as a firm, our job is to be the storytellers, right? And look at what our clients are going through and how we could leverage.
To find the different solutions.
Yeah. And leveraging all these emerging technology solutions to solve business problems, right? So it could be anything.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many startups now, and it's funny. There's a joke or a meme on LinkedIn about AI startups being like, "Oh, I implemented the API for ChatGPT and called it a startup." But it is really that simple. Sometimes you just need a good idea, and but there's so many of them now. How do you keep up? A lot of people have asked me like, "It's too much. It's overwhelming. I don't even know what's possible." I know that AI could help me in like 500 things throughout my day, but like signing up for 500 services is overwhelming. What do you? It seems to me, and I would love to know your take, that the end game is that you're going to have a roll up and it's going to be basically like office related stuff, tasks and automations and assisting, and then personal level stuff. And then there will be suites, like the next Microsoft Office 365 will be like AI personal 365 and then AI work 365. You know what I mean? Something like that. But what do you think of how the landscape is kind of?
I think this use case could be used by literally everyone, right? So I'm actually writing a book. I've been writing a book for a long time now. I've had like a couple of chapters, but writer's block, I got stuck. So I basically fed in, I think I created 5 chapters already. I fed it in through ChatGPT and GPT-3 playground.
So you're all 5 chapters.
All 5 chapters, so it knows what I'm writing about. And I said, can you give me a relative outline of future chapters based on the content that? So I prompted it, right?
Right.
And it gave me like 30 different chapters and ideas I could write on. So, from there I wrote additional 2 chapters and so on and so forth. So I used that as a digital assistant to help me just be much more creative, right?
Yeah.
So people that are creating content, people that want to send like a formal email, leverage these tools, just prompt it, hey, I'm looking to send an email to ABC person, and this is what I'm planning to get out of it. Can you help me, create this email?
It's funny you mentioned that. On Reddit, I saw someone use ChatGPT to take a passive-aggressive email they wrote and to make it, so basically they told it to remove the passive aggression from this email. They were like, I guess, upset at somebody, but they wanted to like say the same things without it seeming aggressive.
Yeah.
And I was floored because it's like, yeah, it makes sense, but like imagine having to like clear your head, take your emotion out of it, and then sit there for an hour like revising words like this thing that did it in seconds.
Yeah.
And it's so useful.
Yeah.
One thing that's crazy is I was talking to a therapist, and they were talking about how in the future they expect like AI to take a string of videos of like a child as they develop and be able to say what kind of like as a diagnostic tool, what kind of issues they have from a developmental perspective. And then it'll assist the parents in providing activities for the child to learn more skills like patience or stuff like that. Or it can even diagnose like people who have deep-seated emotional trauma. If your AI is with you from birth, and like I know it sounds dystopian, but imagine like your 2-year-old now has an AI assistant that's always on them and keeps them safe too, because there's predators and sometimes it's very nuanced, like who do you trust and who do you not trust. It's kind of weird to think that everyone's going to have this level of personal surveillance, but I don't know. It's kind of anarchist in a way, but it makes sense that that's the end goal because of how useful it'll be for each individual person that kind of leverages it.
Yeah, and then the conversation will come into play about privacy, right?
Right.
Because now they know too much about you.
Right. Well, it's your AI. Is it okay that it knows too much about you?
But we have to make sure that it's protected.
Right.
and then no one could get to it, right?
Right.
Because this is sitting some.
That's a level like,
But it is emotion. You can
Right.
easily capture it.
but you know what's crazy? I mean, Facebook came in the middle of our lives, right? For us, but there were some people who are born with it. And for us, privacy was a big thing. And I'm sure it's still a big thing for a lot of people, but every subsequent generation seems to be more and more willing to give up privacy for convenience.
Okay.
It seems that way, but
So I'll take a devil's advocate approach, right?
yeah.
So what if you introduce in the government like social credit score? Have you heard what China's doing?
I haven't. I've heard of the concept, but
So you could take that information and provide. I don't think your views and the way you live your life is up to par to like our citizens. So I'm going to give you a lower social credit score. And
this is the Chinese government doing this.
yeah, it's been in existence for a while.
They
10 years. Yeah.
So they're taking data from like social media and stuff.
If you cross the street at a red light, your social credit score will go down.
Using facial recognition.
Yeah,
Oh wow,
that exists today
that exists in China.
in China. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. So, like, we have to be careful with stuff like that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because on a personal level, if that data doesn't get out, then that's one thing. But if if the government's eventually like, well, you have no choice now. Your data is plugged into our systems, and the NSA now has a whole new ballpark to play.
Have you watched Minority Report?
I love that movie.
Yeah. So you can actually create predictive analytics, based on that, and predict if the guy is going to, or the girl, right, is going to, break the law, right?
Right.
Just based on their patterns.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And
I guess when I saw it, I never thought, but the technology is there.
yeah,
To some degree.
Yeah.
It might not be 100%, but neither
it
was
was on an intent of whoever uses it, and if they're powerful enough to use it, and
that's why I feel like AI is simply an extension of human consciousness. So if we want to use it for good or evil, it's going to happen. And the tools that we create to, protect ourselves from AI and also, help further our own kind of goals, it's all kind of within our power. So any problems or solutions that come from it is merely an extension of our own will in a sense. So that's why I worry about AI, but not because of AI, but because of how people will.
yeah, it's the ethics behind it, right?
Right.
And it's in this conversation of AI, it is very easy to go into a rabbit hole, and we're going to have debates to the end of time related to AI.
All right. Well, thanks again. I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.